When I wake in the morning, I want to blow into pieces. I want more than just okay. And when I'm up with the sunrise, I want more than just the blue skies. I want more than just okay. I'm not giving up. I'm not backing down. More than fine. More than bent on getting by. More than just okay. When I'm up, when I'm lit with the sunrise, I want more than just a good time. I want more than just okay. I'm not giving up. I'm not backing down, and I'm not selling out. I want more. More than fine. More than bent on getting by. More than just okay. More than oceans away from the dawn. More than oceans away from who we are. More than oceans. More than oceans. Yeah. More than fine. More than bent on getting by. More than just okay.
There is no doubt in my mind that you want more than an average, mundane, mediocre life. As a matter of fact, because that's the kind of life you want, most of us do things that we'd never ordinarily do, seeking for something more than just average. We are willing to do things, again, that we never even crossed our mind 5-10 years before as we get older, because we're so desperate, every single one of us, to live a life that is not just mediocre, not just average, not just mundane. And that kind of life is only found one way in one place. And there's a connection between that idea and the struggle that we have with an old passage in the Old Testament and a New Testament passage. And those passages are this, and I want you to turn to them. 1 Samuel chapter 17, 1 Samuel 17, and Acts chapter 2. While you're doing that, welcome online audience. Glad you're here. In Etiwanda Gardens, glad you're with us. Lone Hill and over in the Fireside Room in Australia, New Zealand. I just got back from Australia, so I know a lot of families, a lot of home groups, a lot of small groups watching, and just kind of coming along with us every weekend. This is an important message as we begin this series called Welcome Home, because there's a connection with the idea of being home and the idea of finding that significance, finding that life that is above average, not merely mediocre, but extraordinary. And to do that, you're going to have to really go through a little system of thought with me. We're going to put some things in a funnel, and then after we've done that, it's all going to come out, and it's going to be a lot clearer to us. The first passage, remember, 1 Samuel 17, and the other is Acts chapter 2. The first passage is arguably the account of the most popular story in the Old Testament. It's the story of David and Goliath. I don't have time to summarize that, although we do have a photo we found of Goliath online. As you know, Goliath is a big dude with a large appetite for Hebrew blood. Now, when Goliath comes out, and David, you know the story, little shepherd boy David comes out to greet him, Goliath is ticked off. And he's ticked off because he thinks, why are you sending this little shepherd boy? And he says this to David, what am I a dog? This is 1 Samuel 17, verse 43. Am I a dog that you come out after me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. Proving once again that trash talk did not start on the basketball courts of Harlem, but in the valley of Megiddo where the Old Testament battles will fall. But David, he hears that, and he's got a little trash talk of his own. He responds by saying this day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. And I'll give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know there is a God in Israel. Now, we know the story. David has the 5 smooth stones. He only needs one, and fires the first one right through Goliath's head. So someone has said that the last thing that went through Goliath's mind before he died was a rock. And the rock goes through his mind, his head, whatever. He dies. But here's what I want to look at. This is so important because I want to look at the aftermath of a giant killing. Because the things that happen after this represent your life and mine. And what you're going to notice, David has the ebb and flow of life is constantly moving upward, in upward mobility, as long as he's attached to this agent we're going to talk about. As long as this characteristic is in his life, it's upward mobility, above mediocrity. It's extraordinary, away from the mundane. But when he's separated from this agent, this thing we're going to talk about, then the ebb and flow of his life seems to descend further and further down in depression and anxiety and fear and a lack of significance. Do I matter? Into an average mundane life. So I want to look at those. Stay with me, because if you'll stay with me to the end, then it all comes out. Here's the first thing. There were 3 separate responses to David after he slayed Goliath, and they had a profound impact on David's life. The first was from the crowd, and the crowd entered into what we call hero worship. On the count of 3, everybody say it together, all right? 1, 2, 3, hero worship. The women, the Bible says, came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul, singing and dancing with joyful songs and with tambourines and lutes. As they danced, they sang, and it's a very special song. The words went like this: Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. Now, if you're Saul and you're the present king, and you're listening to this, here's what you hear. You hear, we like you, King Saul, but we like David more. David has now become a hero. He's going to have songs and poetry written about him. Women are going to talk about his courage. Men are going to envy his military achievements. David is a hero. Now, stay with me. We in America, we love heroes, don't we? I've seen what you do when I show you a hero. Even some of you grown men start crying. You try to wipe it out of your eye and say, I got something in my eye. I know what you're doing. Like the time that I showed you that 10-year-old girl on America's Got Talent, and she sang with an opera voice as if she was 35 or 40. I looked out and saw some of you guys. You women are crying, so are you guys. As a matter of fact, when I showed you the young man who had autism, who played on his high school basketball team, got no playing time until the last game of the last year, his senior year, and he hit 7 3-pointers in a row. When the lights came on, I thought, dudes, you guys were like, you're weeping. It's okay, though. It's okay. Why do we do it, though? Now, the Olympics are right around the corner, and you know we're going to see more Gabby Douglases, and they're going to make us cry. Why? It's called the Toy Story syndrome. Everybody is looking for meaning, to know that they matter. Remember the little aliens? Pick me. The claw came down, pick me, pick me. You have been chosen. You remember that? It's us, all of us. We admire the hero from a distance. We look at them because it reminds us there's hope for us, that maybe if they achieved this greatness, so too can we. So we celebrate it, but at the same time we celebrate it, it reminds us of our mundane, average, inconsequential life. So we like heroes as long as they're at a distance. If a hero's around our hometown or in our office, that's another story. We want to kill them, and there's a reason. Now, here's the irony. These heroes that we admire, even though we put a halo around their lives and success, they still don't have the thing that we're looking for. We just think they do. They still struggle with mundaneness and average and mediocre, and you're only as good as your last performance. Where David is concerned, the crowd misses the whole point of the David and Goliath story. Who was the real hero? Who slayed Goliath? It was God. That's okay, you can say his name out loud. He's pretty happy when you do that. 1, 2, 3, God. He's the hero. He's the one that guided the stone. He's the hero origin. And it was to show the people, and God is constantly trying to do this, and the same thing in your life, that salvation ultimately comes from the Lord. Every good thing that you have, every good and perfect gift comes from God. Now, if God would have defeated the Philistine army in a conventional way, then you might have could have understood how the Israelites misinterpreted or misunderstood, but it's a little shepherd boy with no armor, and one little rock and a slingshot defeats Goliath, this huge guy who's high tech. And God knew the only logical response would be that God has accomplished something truly glorious. But if you read the narrative, the crowd, they don't become possessed with God. They don't glorify God, and they don't become enamored with God. Instead, they become possessed with and enamored with who? David. And they enter into hero worship. Now imagine if you're God and you're listening to this song when the parade comes down through Israel, and they're singing, David has slain his tens of thousands. If you're God, you think, what am I, chopped liver? No, I am the one. I mean, come on, really? Now, the reason I mention this first is everybody in the room, I'm sorry, but humanity really is this simple, is that all of us fit into one of 2 categories when it comes to this kind of hero worship thing. Some of you have been insecure all your life. I mean, There's one word that describes you best, insecure. You're those little aliens, pick me, the claw, pick me, I want to matter. A lot of us are in this category. We're willing to do whatever it takes to be different, to be more than mediocre. I mean, we attend seminars about how to live life better. If you're a salesperson, you're trying to attend seminars how to make more money because you've attached, not that making money's wrong, but you've attached your significance and that you matter by the car you drive, by the house you live in, by, I don't know, the number of children, by the amount of money. It's what we do. It's the vortex of the world sucking you in at every moment of every day. And you got to fight against it. It's a hard battle. And as a result, we fall for the lie, and a lot of us feel so insecure. We feel that we don't matter, we're mundane, we're mediocre. And what you don't realize is no matter how far you go in life, I don't care how much money you make, how successful you are in your company, how many rungs you climb on the corporate ladder, you're still going to feel like everybody else. It's just part of humanity. Now, some of you have gone way past the insecurity. By the way, how do you know someone's really insecure? The more they talk about themselves, right? You just know. But some of us fall into the category of self-worship. And this is where, for some of you, things have gone pretty well in your life. They just have. You're gifted. God gifted you. God gifted us all, but somehow you were able to be at the right place, the right time, use your gifts. You may have made a lot of money. Things have fallen into place. And one day you look around how good your life is, and you say to yourself, you may never say it out loud, but down and deep inside, you're thinking, man, I think I'm pretty awesome. Look at my life. It's obvious that I'm wonderful. I'm obviously doing the right things because God is blessing me. You connect your goodness and your talent and your ability with God's willingness to bless you. In your mind, you never say it out loud, but you've done so well because God has blessed you, but He's blessed you because you're special. Now, we are so desperate to matter that seldom do we give God praise for prosperity. Say it again. We are so desperate to matter that seldom do we give God praise for prosperity. And the reason is that if we do that, we've got to give God some of the glory. And we don't mind to do that, but the more glory we give to God, the less glory we get to ourselves. Now, this is something you don't think about. It's something you may not even say. And some of you may be offended that I would suggest that you don't give God all the glory. You may mouth the words, but down deep inside, you're so hungry to matter that you want to get a little bit of it yourself. And you may say, well, you know, God made this happen. And you may say it humbly, but down deep inside, you're careful because you want to matter. You want to be significant. You want to be more than mundane, more than average. You want more than okay. You want more than fine. And the reality is hero worship is just as dangerous to the worshipee as it is the worshiper. Because there's the temptation towards self-glorification, and you're never going to find what you're looking for there. Now, there's a second response to the aftermath of a giant killing, and it's Saul, and he is a hero hater. So you've got a hero worshiper on the count of three, hero hater. 1, 2, 3, hero hater. Look what happens in verse 8, 1 Samuel chapter 18. Saul was very angry. This refrain, in other words, this chorus in this song, galled him. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. All right, so Saul hates David. Why? Why does Saul hate David? Because David makes him look bad, right? He shows King Saul what an ordained, called of God, chosen by God king should really look like. Bravery, courage, and ultimately trust in the Lord's calling and provision. Before Saul became king, how was he described? Even after he became king, Saul was described as what? Head and shoulders above the rest. It should have been Saul out defeating Goliath. He should have been the one leading the armies to defeat the Philistines. He cowered away in his tent while a little shepherd boy comes forth, and it's a little shepherd boy that defeats Goliath. So what does that mean? Now it means every time Saul sees David, David reminds him of his moral failure. And so when somebody reminds us of our failures, what do we tend to do with them? Get rid of them any way we can. See, that's the irony. We worship heroes from a distance. Wow, that gives me hope that I can go above the mediocrity, mundane, live above average life into the extraordinary. But when the hero's in our office cubicle, then we want to kill him. Because we got to look at him every day. And he reminds us of our failures. And so it's a strange dichotomy. And with David, both have profound impact on his life. Because there will be times in David's life in the future when he falls for the hero worship. And he'll do things we never thought he would be capable of doing. Saul wants to kill David, kill the warrior. He's so insane with jealousy and hatred There's only one thing he can do, and he's going to kill David. Now, he makes 3 attempts. Remember the narrative? What does he do the first attempt? David's in the palace, and when David has his head turned, Saul throws a spear, narrowly missing David's head. I mean, how do you recover from that? I mean, the spear's in the wall, you turn around. What does Saul say? It slipped. So now David knows Saul is a hero hater. And then when that doesn't work, King Saul tries to kill David by offering 2 of his daughters in marriage. Did you hear what I said? Now, when I was in Australia, I heard about where Satan, the devil himself, came into a church one day and said, I am Beelzebub, the prince of darkness, the prince of demons, you will fear. And everybody in the church ran out. They were terrified, except for one old guy on the front row. And Satan went up to the guy and said, hey, I am Beelzebub. I am Satan, the prince of darkness, prince of demons. Don't you fear me? Of course, the old man said, why should I fear you? I've been married to your sister for 40 years. I just thought that was humorous. So I can understand from one point, that's how you're going to kill the guy. I'm just kidding. It's just a joke. But the motivation behind Saul was this. Saul was hoping to make the dowry for these 2 daughters of his so dangerous that David would die in the process. You know what a dowry is? It's what you pay for the daughter. And there's no way David could say no, thanks, but no thanks. I've seen your daughters. You can't do that. That's incredibly uncouth. And so he makes the dowry very dangerous. My father-in-law, when I married Robin, they lived in Africa, and my father-in-law came to me with a straight face when I was 22 years old, and I'd asked for Robin's hand, and he actually said to me, he said, now in Africa, I was offered 15 heads of cattle and a farm for Robin. What are you offering? And he kept his face very straight. So I think I came up with something like a long life of love and happiness, and he didn't laugh. I'm just saying. But the whole thing backfired. He's still not laughing. The whole thing backfired because David not only defeated the armies, but he did it so decisively that his popularity grew. And now Saul is seething. So he comes to the one foolproof way he knows he can get rid of David, and he puts a contract out on David's life. He puts a hit on David's life. David finds out about it. And it's interesting. David goes from being worshiped as a hero to being hated as a hero. And even though it hadn't been that long ago until he had slain Goliath and said, I come in the name of the Lord God Yahweh, of the armies of Israel, now David goes into depression. He starts to believe that his life is worth very little. He's going to die. And he doesn't matter anymore. Now here's where the sermon turns. Stay with me. Something beautiful happens here. Man, I wish I had more time. I have just a few minutes, but man, this is it. And this is not just theory to me, this is experience now. Something beautiful happens in his life, something that is almost unbelievable. Something that had to come from heaven. Because in the midst of all this turmoil and hero worship and hero hating and Saul trying to kill him, God sends him a very special gift. It's the gift of a friend. And his name is Jonathan. David and Jonathan will become so close, bound and knit together. They should have been. What makes it almost unbelievable is these are the 2 guys in the narrative that should have become arch enemies. Bitter enemies. Why? Because Jonathan is the son of King Saul, who's trying to kill David, which means that Jonathan is the one in line to get the throne and to be given the sword of authority and the robe of royalty. Instead, they become so close. I don't want to pass this too quickly. Had it not been for David, hey, look, Jonathan was a warrior in his own right. In fact, there's a passage of scripture that tells us on one occasion that Jonathan defeated an entire outpost of warriors with just himself and his armor bearer, and he utterly defeated them, the Bible says. So had it not been for David, Jonathan would probably have received all the honor, popularity, and prestige he could have ever wanted. If there's ever a time where anybody had a reason to be jealous and envious and full of hatred, it would be Jonathan for David. But thank God there's a third and final response to heroes. It's not hero worship, it's not hero hatred, it's hero origin. Jonathan would have been there when he saw David march out. Now stay with me. I'm putting everything into a funnel, it'll come out. Jonathan saw David go out and defeat Goliath and then go back into King Saul's tent, Jonathan's father. And David looked at King Saul and said, I didn't need your armor. It wasn't about me and my power. It was about God. And Jonathan saw that. And Jonathan was impressed. And then for him to say, I'm here at the service of God. I love him and will serve him with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength, and I will serve you, O great king. And Jonathan saw that. And he was compelled and drawn in to David. So much so that Jonathan is the only other person in the narrative that knows David doesn't need to be worshiped. Honored, yes, as a servant of God, but ultimately the battle belonged to God. And so now, because David knows that, he's going to dedicate his life to David. He says in 1 Samuel chapter 23, verse 17, don't be afraid. My father Saul will not lay a hand on you. You will be king over Israel, and I will be second to you. Even my father Saul knows this. Do you see what Jonathan is doing? He comes to David and he says, I know who you are. I'm not going to be the one that's king. You are. And David, you deserve to be king. I've seen the kind of man you are. And I'm second to you, and I'm going to end up serving you, and my father can't handle that, but I can. Now that would be like two Republican candidates in this election. And even though one's leading 3-1 in the polls, comes to the other guy and says, you know what? You're better than me. Your character is greater. You're more brave. You're wiser. You show more integrity. And it's obvious to me that you would run this country. You would make a better president of the United States than I would. So I'm going to withdraw my candidacy. Now, therefore, we know it wouldn't be Donald Trump saying those things, but we would be astounded because Jonathan saw the God behind David's successes. This is so important, folks, because as long as Jonathan is around David, David lives the big life, extraordinary life. He knows who he is, who he's called to be, and no matter what the circumstances are around him, man, he is good. He's enjoying life. When Jonathan dies, and he does, when he dies fighting a battle alongside his father, David's life begins to subtly change, and he removes himself from this kind of encouragement and accountability, and he ends up taking the wife of another man, killing her husband, and lying to the nation of Israel and to himself. As long as Jonathan was around, David's friendship with Jonathan was the anchor of his soul. It was a spiritual lifeline. One author wrote this about this narrative. He said, the friendship of the king's son entered the warrior's soul in a way the king's hatred never could. So that in 2 Samuel, in verse 4, Jonathan took off his robe, gave it to David along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow and his belt. He gave those to David. Be sure this is not a casual thing. Now stay with me. This is like, this is Jonathan basically in David's presence, taking off the royal robe. I hereby say to you that I see in you God's anointed. You are the next king. He takes his sword. He gives it to David. This is the sword of authority that belongs to you. And he basically, by doing this act, a great Old Testament act, he's saying to David, David, I want you to know what I see in you. You're the king. You're the anointed one of God. And I want you, every time you look at this robe and every time you see this sword, to remember what I just told you and to act like you're the king, to live like you're the king. Jonathan's impact on David was so great. There was one time that David was in a cave and could have killed King Saul, but said to himself, how dare I touch the Lord's anointed? Jonathan held him accountable, and he remembered Jonathan for days even after his death. As a matter of fact, just a couple of days before Jonathan died, he came to David in a place called Horish, and he encouraged. The Bible actually says he strengthened his hand, David's hand, with these words. He said, do not be afraid. For the hand of my father Saul shall never find you. You shall be king over all of Israel. And I just wonder how many times, stay with me, how many times when David was down and depressed and thinking it was mediocre and his life was mundane, he wasn't going anywhere, how many times did he go to the closet and put on that robe and remember what Jonathan had told him? How many times did he get the sword of authority and remember who God made him to be? Now, I have some questions for you, okay, near the end. How many of you struggle, don't raise your hand, how many of you struggle with pride? Well, the reality is all of you, all of us, right? we are so bent on being significant, above mediocrity, that even when we know everything we have, God has given us, there's a part of us that wants to take credit for it. We're afraid if we give God all, well, we'll give him some, but to give God all the glory would mean that I have to say that everything I have is because of what God has done. By the way, folks, this is not a giving sermon, but that's why we're not generous. At least one of the reasons. Because there's a part of us, wait, I worked and I did this with my own two hands, it's mine. How many of you struggle with insecurity? Any of you? Yeah, all of you struggle with insecurity. Why? Because there's a part of you that knows you're not in control, and you're insecure because you think, man, I don't control tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen. And that causes depression. It causes anxiety. It's because ultimately there's a part of you that thinks that you're the hero, that it's what you determine, it's what you will. When somebody tries to tell you otherwise, there's a part of you that wants to believe it, but you have a hard time living that out pragmatically in your life. How many of you are depressed and anxious? How many of us suffer from anxiety? All of these things are part of the kingdom of the earth. If you experience pride and insecurity and depression, anxiety, I just want to say to you, welcome to planet Earth. Now listen, this is the crescendo. Jesus constantly talked about two worlds, up there and down here. And down here it's anxiety and depression and fear and worry and the feeling of average and mundane, and we never seem to get over it. But up there is total acceptance and significance and royalty and anything but mediocrity, the extraordinary life, man, where there is peace, where there's contentment, where there's certainty, where everything is as it should be. The problem is up there's not down here. Now, I brought my friend Tigger along with me this weekend. This was a Christmas present I gave my daughter Sion when she was 8 years old. I wanted to get her something special. We lived in Auckland, New Zealand, and I kept going to this toy store to find something. I never could find something, but every time on the way out, I noticed that all the 8-year-old girls were gathered around Tigger. They love Tigger. I thought, wow, that's it. I'll get Tigger. This will be fantastic. And I walked over and I looked at the price tag, and I knew there was no way I could get Tigger. If I did, I just needed to make sure I didn't tell my wife. But I couldn't resist it. And so, in early November, I walked in and I picked Tigger up. And Tigger was surrounded by all these little girls. When I picked Tigger up, those little girls looked at me as if I was the greatest dad on planet Earth. And I walked up with my head held high and I put it near the cash register. She rang it up and I paid the money. Those little girls followed me through the mall. And the lady said, "You want me to wrap this up?" I said, "No, I'll take him as he is." And I wanted to walk with Tigger from the toy store to the parking lot so that every little girl could know what the greatest dad on planet Earth looks like. We're all looking for significance. And I got home and I set Tigger down and I was going to wrap Tigger as a Christmas present. Then the thought dawned on me, I can't wait that long. And I walked into Sion's room and I gave her her Christmas present in early November. I got in severe trouble with her mother, but I didn't care. It was worth every penny. She still has him. Look how clean he is. Look how she's taking care of him, man. We're talking what? We're talking 13 years, man. Look at him, like brand new. Unless I keep picking him up by the ear. Tigger. Now here's what happens. It's almost as if Jesus said, I know what you want because I've made it for you, and I know what you're looking for. You're not going to find it through hero worship or hero jealousy or hero hatred. What you're looking for, I have found. There is a place, but I can't wait till Christmas to give it to you. So I'm going to give you a little taste of it right here and right now. And there is someone else who temporarily gave up what was rightfully his. There's someone else who gave you his robe of righteousness and wore a robe of sacrifice and suffering that you may rise to royalty. There's someone else who died while fighting his father's battles. And he did it all to bring those who are far from God near to God, so that up there would come down here. And he would establish a group of people called the ecclesia, the church. And it is not a building. And it is not an institution, and it is not a bureaucracy. It's a collective group of people who would bear each other's burdens, who would confess their sins to one another, who would hold each other accountable, who would protect each other, who would remind each other that we are royalty in Jesus Christ, who would rejoice with us when good things happen, who would sorrow with us when we have the failures and disasters and tragedies of life, and who would constantly remind us that although we may lose some of the battles in our life, ultimately we will win the war. And that if we lived in this community with people, the ecclesia, the ones who were called out, that they would constantly remind us of who we really are. And we would not be sucked into the vortex of the world to think that if we made a lot of money, these feelings of mundaneness and mediocrity would go away. They're the people that will ask you the hard questions. It's like coming home. They will tell you the truth about yourself. They will help you see yourself as you really are. And in doing so, it may hurt a little bit, but sooner or later you'll have this community where everybody knows each other as you really are, and you're encouraging each other, and you're loving each other. And my goodness, suddenly we all know that we are royalty, and we know that God's hand is on us, and they'll remind you consistently, what is God doing in your life? What royal objective has He called you to? Are you achieving it? It's God's new community in the world, and Jesus loved it so much He's willing to die for it, so that you could have a little bit of up there, down here. You know, honestly, no matter how much wealth you have, that's not going to give you that. Not that there's anything bad with wealth. It's just that you're looking for a wealth of spirit, a wealth of soul, a wealth of peace, a wealth of confidence, a wealth of security. And you're only going to get that by living in community. When David was in community with Jonathan, he lived the extraordinary life and did extraordinary things. But as soon as Jonathan was gone, David didn't replace him, and what happened? He sinned with Bathsheba. He killed Uriah. He became a liar, and he was a horrible father to his sons. It's there, but the life you're looking for is in the ecclesia, the called out ones, the church that's not a wall, that's not a bureaucracy, but a group of people. Can I show you mine? This is my group. Now, I'm the pastor of this church, I know, and I love you and you love me, but I'm not in deep community with most of you. And this is my community. These are the people that ask me the hard questions. This is my rooted group right now, but long before they were my rooted group, these are my friends. You've got Pastor Phil and his wife Mary on the far left. You've got my wife Robin next. And here's Vivian and Anthony McMahon, and then Eric and Malene Hancock. These are my peeps. Pastor Phil will ask me hard questions. He'll call me out. He'll hold me accountable. He'll say, I don't like how you said that. He'll say, how are you treating the first lady? He calls Robin the first lady. Anthony McMahon and Vivian, they've been our friends since day one. And Anthony and I will go to Dodger games together. And we'll talk about things. And Vivian, she's just a praying woman. She'll remind me what it is to be a true evangelist. She also makes the best carne asada on planet Earth. I don't really like her that much, but I like her cooking. No, that's not true. I like Erica Malene. Malene's a school teacher. Eric works, has a job that causes him to travel. Good people. Now, let me tell you something about that group of people. They are all weird. They are. That's why I fit in. Everybody's weird. Everybody's normal till you get to know them. Because you're going to say, that's not been my experience at church. I think they're all weird and dysfunctional. That's why you're going to fit in so well, because we are all weird and dysfunctional. We all have our pet peeves. We all have our weirdness to us. And sometimes I'll look across the room while Vivian's talking, and I just get a headache because she can go everywhere. And then that's okay, though. I've learned that I'm like that, too, so I can actually follow her. It actually bores me if she talks about the same thing more than 3 or 4 minutes. I like the way she just continually shifts and changes. She's got me, I'm glued. These are the people that we can ask our questions to. It's like coming home. It's like the ones who will say, remember who you are, remember who you're not. I like the fact that when I'm around them, they remind me that I'm nothing, that God is everything, but at the same time, they remind me that I'm everything because of who I am in Christ. The best times of my life are with these people. Do you understand that? And it's something I didn't find until I came here. And now that we're all together in a rooted group, we're anxious to see where that will go. I'm a kind of person that I make it in life, and my value in life is only as good as my friendships and my relationships, and you don't realize so is yours. And I don't have to be somebody I'm not with them. I don't have to act like the pastor. I mean, I'm the pastor, but they don't treat me like that. They just treat me like anybody else. So I can say things and do things and they laugh, but it's okay. It's okay, and that's what you need. But at the same time, they'll call me on the carpet and they'll say, hey, this is what you need to be doing. You need to be thinking about doing things like this, especially Anthony. He's Anthony and Phil are two of our elders, and both of them have no trouble telling me, hey, this is what you need to be thinking about. It's accountability. It's the extraordinary life in community. Now, I want to end like this. These friends of mine tried to kill me. I'm afraid to say, not on purpose, but they did. Not too long ago. Now, this is funny now, and I've got about 5 minutes to tell it. Do not look at the clock. I got about 5 minutes to tell it, so I want you to stay with me. We went on a vacation together. I said some of my best times, my favorite times are when I work really, really hard because I'm looking forward to hanging out with these people. And so we go on a trip together to Maui not too long ago. And it's Anthony's wife, Vivian. Bring that picture up again, if you can, back there. It's Vivian's birthday. And Vivian is the one beside Anthony in the blue, right in the middle, right beside my wife, Robin. So Vivian decides she wants to go to a place called the Olivine Pools. It's a beautiful place, really. It's where the ocean's currents come in over the rocks and create 3 natural pools. And if you're willing to do the long, long hike down, you can get into these pools. They're so crystal clear, you can actually see colored little rainbow fish. It's a great place. Now, most tourists don't know about it. Only the locals know about it. And somehow Vivian found out about it. If you park your car at mile marker or so-and-so, you get out of the car and walk down. You'll walk down and you'll see these beautiful pools. Now, we should have gotten the hint when we started seeing signs like this on the way down. As I've said before, there's no cure for stupid. But we thought, we think what most people do. These signs are for other people, not us. And so it's quite a trek, quite a journey to get down there. And so we start walking down there and we get in these pools. Now, I've said before, I don't really like the ocean because I don't like anything that can wipe out a major city. I'd rather stay in a swimming pool. I love swimming pool, and I've actually been a lifeguard when I was younger in a little lake. So that's okay. Lakes and pools I'm fine with. But not the ocean. But Vivian wants to go. It's her birthday. It almost became her death day. So we get into the pools. A tsunami had struck off the coast not too long before that, so the waves, which people failed to tell us, were when they came in, they were really coming in. The tide was deep. We read a couple of weeks later after what I'm about to tell you happened that people die there all the time. Matter of fact, a couple died there a few weeks before this. Because here's what happens. You get in the pool and it's all good. But then the tide comes in and it washes over the rocks that serve as the barrier between you and the ocean. And it's so powerful that it will sweep you under or take you back out. And people die. We didn't know that before then because Vivian wants to go. And so we go. Anthony is smart. He's the only smart one of the bunch. And so he's standing up high watching all this. I'm in the water. Robin's in the water. Eric's in the water. Malene's on the side of the rocks because she's like me. She doesn't really want to get in, so she just stands on the rocks looking. Problem is, she's on the rocks, the barrier where the tide comes over. And the first wave hits. I was smart enough to know from my lifeguard days, don't fight it, because when you panic, you're done. I just swam down. Go deeper. It's cold, but you can kind of see. And by the way, when you open your eyes in salt water, and you just wait. So after the first wave hit, of course, that's all we think is going to hit. It shoved me down quite hard, so it wasn't hard to get to the bottom. And then I think, okay, I'm running out of breath, time to go up. So I start to go up. And I almost reach the top when there's this body that thinks I'm a rock. She starts to support herself with me. Of course, her name is Vivian. And she probably thinks God has sent her an angel to bring her to safety. And of course, I'm not able to get to the top. And Anthony said later, hey, it was like you were closing a washing machine, just throwing you around. So now I'm going back down and I'm running out of air and the second wave hits. Now I'm in trouble and I know it. And even though you know you're not supposed to panic. Now, like I said, it's funny now. So I'm thrown down and I'm in big trouble. So now panic is gone. I'm swimming as fast. I am kicking as hard as I can to get to the top to get some breath. I finally, after Vivian has gone, get to the top. And I'm able to suck in enough air, but not a lot because the third wave hit. When the third wave hit, it hit me hard. This time it took me down and into the coral. So now I've got cuts and scrapes. And if I wasn't a pastor, I would take it and I'd show you all these, but I can't, okay, no, just kidding. So I get thrown up and over and into the smaller pool, and suddenly it's all over. And I'm sitting there in a pool of blood, where the blood's coming off where I'd been cutting the coral. And it takes me a good 15, Anthony said, I saw your face, man, and you were like just in a daze. I thought it was the end. We laugh about it now when we talked about it on the way home, and Anthony and Vivian are here, so you can ask them to make sure I told the truth about this story. But I started thinking later what a great analogy. Because Anthony was up top watching over everybody. I think if he thought he had to go in, he would have. He said I would have been the first one he would have saved, because he would not want to tell the elders that he took me to Maui and the senior pastor died. Which hurt Vivian a little, but she got over it. Then there's Malene, who was wondering on the side, I wonder how Eric is doing, but I'll go in if I have to. And then there's Eric, who's the most humble out of all of us, who was thinking, hey, I wonder if Malene knows I'm okay. There's Robin, you got to know my wife. Woo, this is fun. Can we do this again? You think I'm kidding, all right? There's Eric, and then there's me. And I'm thinking, this is it. This is the end. I've done it again. I didn't kill myself on a bicycle, so I'm just going to drown myself. And every one of those personalities and temperaments have been necessary to keep me balanced. It's good to know that there's somebody watching over. That's Anthony. It's good to know there's somebody who just rides the waves of life, just rides them and has fun. It's good to know that somebody thinks the angels come and save them. It's good to know that there's somebody in there that actually worries about everybody else instead of themselves. It's good to know that if somebody has to jump in and save you, they will, no matter how difficult it is. When you get in community, you have all these temperament and personalities that respond to life's difficulties differently. And the truth is, you need every single one of them to survive. Every single one of them. Be sure that the church is imperfect, and that's why you're going to fit in. People are going to drive you mad. You'll drive people mad. But Jesus loves his church. And the way he brings up there down here is in the ecclesia, the community. Hear me when I say, if you're not in one, oh, we love you. We're never going to force you. I mean, that'd be crazy. And the cool thing about this sermon is it's not on small group weekend. So my point is not to try to get you on a life group. This is just come home. You're missing out on life and living and community with friends that will bring the very best out of you, that will encourage you, that will remind you of your more than mediocrity, your more than okay, more than fine life. And when you get together with that group and you tell your stories and you're with a group of people that focus on God, your life, you'll be catapulted into the stratosphere of holiness and goodness and fun and almost drowning. Amen. And good carne asada and all the things that come from heaven. That's who we need to be right there. It's there if you want it. Father, thank you so much for your goodness, your mercy, your grace. Oh, man, Father, I pray you'd open the eyes of the blind right now. Help them to see that as long as they live in isolation, you'll still love them. They'll go to heaven by grace and mercy. But if they want up there to come down here right now, and they want a little deposit of what is one day going to become a reality, if they want to feel more than fine, more than just okay, and face every new day with an excitement and courage, that's going to come when they put themselves in a position to be accountable, to love, to serve, to do life together with people of a common bond called the ecclesia, and to be reminded that in Acts chapter 2, when the church was the church, that even the people on the outside gave them great favor. because everybody wants into a community like this. I pray for those who have tried community and been wounded and hurt, that they would not give up, knowing that somehow they will find the right group of people into which they fit that will encourage them and help them to live the extraordinary life. It's my prayer for all people. In Jesus' name, amen.